Greetings and welcome to the Thirsty Mage, the podcast who for one welcomes our new unicorn overlords. I'm your host David Lloyd, the man who begrudgingly put down Final Fantasy VII Rebirth just long enough to try out the demo for tonight's topic, which is the Vanillaware developed unicorn overlord. Joining me tonight is the silver tongue rogue that convinced me to play this game and that it was worth taking a break from what might be my game of the year so far. It's Jordan Rudick.
That introduction line, riffing on The Simpsons, doing kind of Simpsons quote there, really, really solid. Probably our best of 2024 so far. Yeah. So kudos to you for that. Yeah, I had to drag. I made a point of dragging you away from Final Fantasy for at least an hour or two. I'm not sure how much time you put into the Unicorn Overlord demo, which is a pretty meaty demo, and it's nice to get those like ones where you can really sink your teeth into, as opposed to like the 30-minute demo where you're like, oh, it ends there? Like I haven't done anything yet, you know, like this one, like it's a sizable part of the game. You're in that kind of opening kingdom and you can do a bunch of battles and stuff. So I had to pull you away because I'm spoiler alert, I'm reviewing the game. I've got a review coming out. We're recording on a Wednesday. My review is going to come out on Thursday. It's a review in progress, actually. I'm not even finished the game yet. We didn't get too much of a lead time on this one, and I have to put more time into this game because I'm adoring it so far. And we just kind of wanted to share some impressions tonight. Obviously, not super spoiler heavy or anything like that. Maybe down the road, but yeah, I'm excited to talk about this game. I was excited to write the review. I haven't been able to put it down. I know I was kind of working against the deadline as well with the embargo coming up on Thursday here, but. Yeah, this was a game that was able to take me away from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth long enough to write the review, to record with you tonight, David. So it has to be at least pretty good.
Yeah,
and it is.
Yeah, well, I think I was just shy of 2 hours because it was funny because I guess we'll get into the details more, but at the very beginning I was like, and I'm sure a lot of this came down to like the impatience of like, you know, if I'm putting down this really good game, this game better be good. And it took like a 20-30 minutes to kind of start to ramp up, because there was definitely like with the demo, it's like the beginning of the game, like it's not like a chunk.
It doesn't start you like 5 or 10 hours in, right? It is very much
it is the beginning.
Start,
So there's obviously a little bit of a setup to give you the backstory of why the world is where it is. And by the end of the 2 hours, though, I was pleasantly surprised, or not even surprised. I was just pleasant to have experienced it and thought, okay, yeah, like this just kind of confirms my suspicions that I'll be playing this game as soon as I'm done with Rebirth. So it's definitely on the list.
It's again cementing like that. This might be the best like 3 or 4 month period in RPG history. Like I can't believe just the staggering hit after hit after hit that we've had, or we're going to have after like 3 months into 2024. It's kind of crazy. And I think we have to put this one right up there. I'm excited for people to get their hands on like the full version. I know that again, the demo came out. That was a good call by them, because this game I feel like it's geared more towards fans of these types of games, like strategy, tactics, RPGs. I think it's just going to be a hard game for newcomers to get into. It's nice that you have the demo, which can let people try it if they're not familiar with these types of games and see if they jive with it. But it is layer upon layer. It is incredibly deep. There's so much going on under the hood here. I need to. We'll get. We're kind of just going to be, talking about this game and see where we go with it. At some point, David, I need to know kind of where you stopped in the demo, so I can kind of gauge how much further I want to talk about the game, because you start in the kind of opening continent. I think it's Cornea, or it's either Kingdom of Cornea, or the continent might have a separate name as well, or the kingdom that you're in there. So that's probably the largest one. You could spend the most time in that area. It feels like it's really meaty. There's lots of side content there. So I'm curious kind of where you stopped off.
So there is... So Scarlet, one of the characters, gets kidnapped, and then he like heads off east, I guess, towards the capital.
Hmm.
And then there, I'm told that there's like there's these mercenaries that are kind of blocking the way. So I dispatched the mercenaries, and then had a bit of a chuckle at the interaction between the prince and the mercenary that he ends up hiring after like the fight or whatever. And then I did a couple. I didn't go much further than that. Like I ended up doing
Hmm.
a couple battles after that, and kind of looked. I spent time like going through like the units and stuff, kind of looking at the different setups or whatever. And
Yeah, yeah,
I was like unlocking things like where you could unlock like I think when you first start the game you can only have like two units
that's
in
right.
your yeah. So I was like unlocking more units and seeing like, okay, well, where do I want to put like, because you get so much. I don't even remember what it was called, but there's like so many meters or units that you can like, you get so many points that you can
Yeah,
unlock things with. So I'm like, oh,
meters
okay, what?
currency is on top
Yeah,
of currencies.
yeah,
It's a
exactly.
lot.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I was like, okay, so what do I want to unlock here, or what do
yeah.
I want to do with these points that I've earned? And so I was kind of going through there. But like you said, there's so many weeds of like, yeah, like there's stats and different combinations of
Mhm.
units and everything. Like you could just spend hours just trying, like going through numbers, trying
Well,
to figure out combinations and stuff.
part
You
of
know.
this is why I say that it's not super beginner friendly, because there's a lot of mechanics here, right? And yeah, they tutorialize it to an extent, but I think you also kind of need that familiarity with these types of games, like like a Fire Emblem, like a obviously there's a little bit of Fire Emblem here. I don't think that's the main kind of comparison point for Unicorn Overlord. For anyone who's played any of the Ogre Battle games, something Ogre Battle, I think March of the Black Queen, I think it's called on Super Nintendo. Obviously, that's '93, right? That's 30 years ago. So not expecting a lot of people to have familiarity with that. There was a couple of other Ogre Battle games. One came to Nintendo 64 as well. These are the most similar. I haven't played a ton of games like this. This does feel like a kind of a subgenre that was a little bit kind of dead and buried, and now it's kind of coming back with this game, which is really cool. It's almost a spiritual successor to those games. So if you know those, you have probably the best analog for what this new game is going to be. But maybe kind of just for those who haven't played the demo or just completely uninitiated to this game, it's worth kind of giving a little bit of background. Mechanically, I think, because it is such a mechanics driven game.
Hmm.
You have kind of two kind of areas of the game, or maybe types of gameplay. One is you're in this overworld area and you're controlling the prince Elaine, who has kind of lost his kingdom, and you're leading this liberation kind of rebel army to try to get it back and take out the emperor, the villain Galerius, who is the person who kind of took over the whole world basically. In the overworld, you're going to towns, forts. You're kind of looking around for items you can pick up, and you can spend those to improve the towns or to complete side quests or things like that. It's kind of a top downish kind of view, like a little bit to the side as well. And to it's very kind of a relaxed situation when you're kind of just walking around the map. There's no penalty to anything that's going to happen. If you can't go to a place or if it's too strong, a character will tell you like you can't do that battle yet. It's going to be too much for you. Sometimes you run into enemies on the overworld and you can do a little battle with them. If you beat them, you get honor points, which I'll talk about in a minute. Or if you lose, nothing happens. Like you just, okay, well, you can't fight that guy, at least with the units that you have now or the setup that you have now. In the overworld, you're also able to recruit new people after events and battles. You are often given a choice of whether to recruit someone that you've defeated to your team, or you could execute them, I guess. I think most of the time, if you try to recruit them, you can, and you probably should, because there's so many different characters and they all have different kind of abilities, and they're all different classes. Again, there's tons of different classes here as well. Feels like there's more classes here than in any Fire Emblem game that I've ever played. The classes can also be promoted. That option opens up later, which is fun. Kind of a good stat boost for them there. So in the stat growth, the progression, the equipment, stuff like that, you do see. At least I see like comparisons with Fire Emblem there for sure. Outside of the overworld, there are little nodes that open up where you can do a battle, and you can choose to kind of do those at any time. Some of them you just open up like a little city area or city space where there's a new town. You can buy stuff, buy equipment, buy items. Other times it's a mission that you have to do to advance the story and open up more of the continent or open up more of the kingdom. So you kind of see this, or there are optional battles, like, and it'll say like side mission versus like a main story mission, or the third type is liberation mission, which just opens up part of the map, and you want to do a bunch of those. In the combat is where I think the game really, really shines. There are just so many kind of decisions that you have to make in the battles where you have to choose a what characters or individual troops are going to go inside a unit, right? So, David, you mentioned you start off with two characters can be in one unit. You can upgrade that to three. I think pretty quickly you can upgrade to three, and then
Yeah,
eventually four and five. I think it might cap out at five. I'm not 100% sure. After you've arranged kind of which individual characters you want in a unit, and you want to try to complement them, right? You might want like a defensive one up front, and then like an archer or a wizard in the back, something like that. And you kind of see that the game gives you tips about how to arrange the units. Do you put them side? They're on a 2x3 grid. Do you put them kind of side by side? Do you put them one in front of the other? Again, as you play the game, you talk to NPCs and stuff. It'll give you tips about which units go better together, which ones gel a little bit more. So you can kind of customize to your heart's content. So that's part of the fun of, I guess, arranging your individual units that are going to go into combat. So in combat, you deploy those units, and you kind of you click on them and you select like a place on the battle map where you want them to go, and then in real time, again, it has that real time strategy or real time tactical gameplay. You can choose where they're going to go on the map. As soon as they encounter an enemy unit, that's when a combat encounter happens. And it was so funny, David, because you messaged me as soon as you got into your first combat encounter. You're like, I can't control this.
yeah,
What's going on here? Like, how come I can't do anything here? And you just kind of, am I just watching a TV show? Am I just watching a film play out? And you kind of are. So you don't control your individual characters or units in the battles. As soon as two units meet, an enemy and one of your allied units, the battle just plays out. So if you have high initiative rating, your characters will go first, and then it'll just kind of play out with each individual character or troop attacking based on their initiative, using their different abilities. They're going to have different kind of like more passive abilities like heals and buffs, and then they'll have like attacking abilities that are a little bit more direct. And so they'll do all of their abilities based on kind of how much. I can't remember what the currency is called, but they look like little gems above your above your units, above your characters. And as they spend the gems, they'll do their different attacks. And as you get stronger or as you level up, you'll get more of those gems. Again, you got to buckle up because we're getting into the weeds here with the gameplay, because this is what the whole thing is. The cool thing is, and I said this to David in our Slack chat, is you can adjust their individual abilities and kind of prioritize them in different ways. Like you can, and I likened it to the Gambit system of Final Fantasy 12. So you can click on your healers to healing spells and say, okay, I want you, instead of just casting them randomly on a particular character, you're going to heal the person who has the lowest HP, or you're always going to heal the person who has the highest attack stat because you want to keep them alive. So when their initiative comes up or when their turn comes up, they'll cast the heal according to the parameter that you've set. And you can do parameters for the attacks, for the defensive abilities, the buffs, all that stuff. So you have a lot of control over what your characters do, even though you're not controlling them directly, right? You're kind of giving them orders behind the scenes, I suppose, or giving them criteria by which they should act. So that's where you get all the kind of strategy or kind of strategy gameplay kind of behind the scenes, is setting up the characters to follow a particular algorithm almost. So that's pretty cool. David, I don't know if you had, I don't know if you got to a point where they tutorialized that, or did you mess around or see anything like that?
no, it didn't. In the demo part, anyway, I didn't get to the point where you could change the gambits. Like it was basically you would choose, like they explained that you could choose, like you said, the front row.
Yeah.
You would put certain characters, like my best combination, which completely destroyed the other enemies or whatever, was I had the rogue Travis, I think his name was,
Yeah.
standing in the front, and because he was a thief, he had a high dodge.
Yeah,
So
that's right. They keep attacking him and missing, right?
yeah, yeah. And then I just had Joseph standing behind him, which had like a super powerful attack,
Yeah.
and he actually got to attack twice per turn. So yeah, basically Travis would run in, kind of swipe at the first guy, and then the next two guys would go both miss, and then Joseph would just finish off. whoever was still in the fight at that point
If
with
I'm
by
if
just
I'm
double attacks.
if I'm remembering, Joseph was like he's like the knight on horseback. Like he's basically
He's the older guy, like
the
the guy
older
who
elder
initially
statesman,
takes care
right?
of the prince. Yeah, so he's kind of like the original bodyguard of the queen, who's now protecting the prince.
Yeah, he's kind of like that prototypical Fire Emblem character that you get like on the first couple maps where you can use him if you really really need to, but you don't have to, or maybe you shouldn't because he's already super overpowered compared to everybody else. I guess like
Yeah,
he's kind of that fail safe a little bit. And you realize that like after a few hours, like oh, I should probably level up the other characters because he's already like level 20 or something like that when you get him or something.
yeah.
But yeah, no, that's good. Did you get? I'm trying to think what other characters you would have gotten by that point. So you got the rogue. Did you get the guy with the axe who kind of attacks? He'll do like a follow up attack at the very end.
Yeah, I can't think of what his name was now though. I got to bring up the
Aubin,
character
I think it's
list.
Aubin.
Oh, okay.
There's him and there's like a big gladiator like barbarian type of guy you get as well who can kind of do a swipe that hits everybody in a row.
Yeah, I got Hodrick,
Yeah,
who was like a big tank, and I
yeah,
guess
the
he was
big knight.
supposed to like take damage or whatever. And then I think Chloe had the spear.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, she's good. She can hit two guys in a column, I guess, or column row, a row, not
Yeah,
a column. Yeah, so she can hit the front line and the back line with one, and she has a heal abilities too.
yeah. And then Elaine, obviously, and Lex were both kind of like your standard
Hmm.
sword bearers or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know if Scarlet comes back early or not at all, but she was the magic user at early on.
yeah. I don't know if I should say what I will say is that the characters kind of leaving your party or being abducted or whatever isn't like I think that can happen not often, but it can happen multiple times. So there
Oh,
are
okay.
opportunities for like you might get really attached to a character and then they are not part of your team for a little while, so you have to adjust, right? Like I think a lot of things happen in the game. There's even missions later on, not super later. Like I've only played about half the game so far, but there's missions later on where characters on your team might leave for a mission, or like kind of like just not defect, but like kind of go off on their own and get caught,
Oh, yeah.
or get like trapped in the middle of a map, and so you have to go and like rescue them. And if they die, you would lose that map. So you've got kind of two objectives. You have to take out like the enemy leader in their encampment, and you have to also protect this other force that might be going in a different direction. So you do get some varied objectives that pop up later on too.
I'm curious, is there permadeath?
No, not to my knowledge. Maybe there's a
Okay.
difficulty setting that adjusts that, but I haven't seen it. I think the
There's three
game's
difficulty settings. There was
yeah.
story. I don't remember what they were called, but there was like story. There was tactical, and
Hmm.
then probably hard. I
Yeah,
don't.
or
I think
expert or
was
something like that. Yeah.
yeah. And I went with tactical, like the middle one,
Yeah,
just because.
I'm playing on the
Yeah,
middle one as well. I think it's a good place to start. I mean, I guess yeah, beginners probably want to pare that down to the easier one, just to, at least to try it out. I think you can change them at any time, but the normal
yeah.
I think provides a decent challenge. You get choices in the game as well, not just about who to recruit or what to do with an enemy after you've beaten them. You know, let them go or hang them or execute them. I guess you also get choices about kind of where you want to go next, right? So not just choosing individual battles, but I think you can choose individual kingdoms. Like maybe you want to go to the south, or maybe you want to go to the east, for example, as your first kind of big major story choice, and then you'll come back, I guess, and do the other one later. So that's kind of fun too, like kind of choosing your own path in that way. But yeah, I was going to say a little bit more about the combat. So you've chosen your units, you're getting to the swing of things, like learning how to fight, take over objectives. There are little garrisons where enemies are generally stationed on the maps, and if you don't take them out, they will keep spawning kind of lesser units to kind of keep throwing at you. So you have to go and fight those tougher kind of not mini bosses or mini leaders, but they're just a little bit more stout than your standard foes that are thrown at you. But you have to take out those garrisons fast so they don't keep spawning enemies. When you do take out a garrison, it restores some of your stamina. So your characters can each unit can only do 4, 5, or 6 kind of combat encounters before they get tired. And then they have to rest, or you can use items to restore their stamina, or some characters have abilities to restore stamina as well. in taking out the garrisons and occupying them, you also start your characters kind of automatically heal. Or every maybe 5 to 10 seconds, they'll heal up a little bit by standing on the garrison. So it's a good place to defend as well, or just to chill for a little bit if your
Hmm.
character needs more some healing and you don't want to use your items to do that. You also in battle you collect these points called valor points, I think, and you build up a meter, a valor meter, and that you can spend to do these kind of extra abilities that every character has, like a unique one. So the first archer you get, his name is Rolf. His special valor ability is that you can cash in 2 of your valor points. You get a max. You can earn up to a maximum of 10. You cash in 2 of them, and he'll do like a ranged attack just to hit multiple enemies on the map if they're all grouped together. I think it's called Rain of Arrows or something like that. Super helpful. Really good like early game, mid game tactic to use if you're getting stuck. Try to earn or preserve a lot of those valor points, and then just get Rolf very close to the enemy if he's a decent level, and just fire away with your rain of arrows. Especially if you're hitting 3, 4, or 5 enemy units for like 10 to 20 damage. It is substantial enough generally to help you win those fights when you actually run into those units. So that's going on. You've got the valor points. Some of the other abilities include some of the mages can summon like a storm that does like lightning damage over a cloud that keeps moving across the map, or vice versa. Yeah, they could summon like a cloud of healing, I guess, so it would rain down like healing on your allied troops. So that's kind of fun. Some of the maps later on have catapults and ballistae, so you can set up a unit in the catapult, and then you'll get every maybe 10 seconds you'll get a chance to launch like a barrage of rocks that do a ton of damage. Like, it's so fun to have to grab a catapult from an enemy and just rain down these huge boulders on the enemies. You can hit their catapults, hit their garrisons or whatever, just kind of take them out there too. Yeah, I mean, where do we want to go here? Like, do you think the story is compelling? Like, are you interested in like the setup, the first couple hours, how it sets up what's seemingly going to happen to Elaine, or
Yeah,
what their
like to a
path is?
certain degree, like it's pretty cliche, I guess.
Yeah,
Like I
for
probably
sure, for
heard this
sure.
story 1,000 times. I mean, I can't really comment too much on because like it all depends on where it goes, right? Like especially when you look at like Aegis Rim was like such an insane, like it just went to crazy places.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to be like, oh well, the story is not compelling. It's like, well, it's starting off that it's not all that compelling, but it doesn't mean it's not going to go to some pretty crazy places. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess like just from the demo, the basic story is that this evil general or is kind of is a traitor, I guess, to the kingdom of Cornea, and he takes it over and kills the queen. And before he kind of does his final assault on the city, the queen tells Joseph to take Prince Elaine, who's like I guess 10 or 12 or something at the time, to kind of whisk him away and protect him until he's a grown up, whatever. And she gives them this ring that's a symbol of their family lineage, I guess. And so they're hiding out. So Joseph is hiding out with the prince and this other. I think he's like on an island somewhere, as I believe is what they said. What training him and whatnot, and
Yeah.
basically, like you said, the whole world eventually becomes under the control of this general who's now an emperor. And one day the boat, this ship that's carrying soldiers from this, you know from the general, I guess, are there to, they don't really, they allude to like they're there to capture someone. And I guess Elaine kind of assumes it's
Mm-hmm.
himself that they're there for.
Yeah.
But they end up defeating the attackers, and then they discover that the ring that he was given has this magical power that uh, takes away. I guess like the people who came from the general were under a mind control, and the ring alleviated the spell or whatever. So they have kind of a plan of like, oh, okay, so I guess this general was able to take over the world because all these people have been under his influence and this ring that nobody thought was even magical to begin with, they just thought it was an heirloom, has this magical power too. break the spell or whatever. So they decide based on like, okay, we have a weapon to combat this general. Let's begin the liberation. So they head into like the main continent, because Joseph has even kind of over the years been kind of amassing a resistance, I guess you'd say,
Hmm.
where he could, like, he'd be traveling back to the continent, because when they get there, they already have allies ready for them to assist in, like, this like I said, resistance to the general, try to take back the land. But when they get there, they're like immediately ambushed
Hmm.
and and lose one of their compatriots there. So yeah, like it's good. Like it's all gonna come down for me. I guess a lot of it'll depend on the character development. Like I know
Yeah.
they have over 60 unique characters, so hopefully things don't get lost in the weeds quickly. Because when you have so many characters, they clearly can't all have their time in the sun.
Of course, yeah, and
So
I think so, obviously some pop up more than others, and you see like kind of more relationships forming, and ones that are like old friends and things kind of come back. So it's not like everyone is going to have like an intimate relationship with Elaine, but I think that some of the characters he does meet, like they'll be really funny, kind of lighthearted encounters where like girls were like join your team and want to like him to propose to them or something, or like they're like, oh, I look forward to like being by your side at the end of all this. Like it's quite funny. Like there's good moments of like levity in between like the kind of bloodthirsty battles and combat encounters that are happening. So they think they do a good job of balancing, like adding some humor in places. And again, you see even kind of emotional beats between other characters that you've recruited, right? Like maybe they find their sibling, or they find like a long lost friend or something like that, and so there's touching moments between those ones when they kind of come together. Or if something kind of bad happens that separates them, they're kind of pushing a lane. We got to go in this direction. We got to go rescue this person, or we got to go kind of help out in this corner of the map. So you do get that. What I've kind of noticed so far is that when you go to a new kingdom, that kingdom has its own problems, right? They're dealing with Galerius's army. So the Galerius's force, or his faction, is called Zenoira. So the Zenoirans have kind of taken over every kingdom, and they're almost causing the resistance or the rebellion, the liberation army, to look very appealing, right? Because they're kind of trying to stamp down on all the people that might want to rise up. And so when your kind of party, your army runs through here, everyone's like, oh, you're kind of the saviors, right? You are the group that is going to like liberate, which makes sense. These people
the
from the
Rebel Alliance.
Exactly. Like so there's a lot of that. Like even Galerius, he looks like a Darth Vader type character, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not something we haven't seen before. But yeah, I think the idea that every kind of kingdom you go to has its own kind of problems that you're dealing with, and they all tie into your overarching goal of just building this army, right? And it is fun. It is fun to see like who is going to join your forces, like what characters do you kind of gravitate towards a little bit more. I think the narrative is going to be fine, but I think it is a little bit more gameplay and combat focused. I think that's where most of the enjoyment for people will come. The kind of customizing your army and your units, kind of picking, seeing what works. Right, there's so much trial and error. I found now that I have like dozens of characters in my party that I'm using almost all of them. Right, it's hard to leave a lot of units out. You can keep acquiring more units and then increasing their size as well by using these honor points that you accumulate. So you constantly have a reason to acquire honor and then spend it either buying more units, so that allows you to put more units on the field, increasing their size, so having 2, 3, 4, 5 individual characters in each unit, and then you actually spend the honor doing the promoting ability, or the promoting mechanic as well. So when you want to raise one of your characters to a new class, like a higher level class, you spend the honor doing that too. So everything kind of funneling into that currency makes a lot of sense. Basically, everything you do gives honor. So you're rewarded for exploring, completing side quests, going to the town and doing deliveries where you just bring them the basic materials that you find in the overworld. So it's got that really satisfying loop of do a battle, explore around the area, get some materials, bring them to the new town you just unlocked by winning the battle. Do the delivery there, get more money, get more materials, get some items, kind of rinse and repeat. And I find it very satisfying. The game does a good job of scaling up the difficulty quite gradually too. Like there aren't too many times where I hit massive roadblocks. Maybe once or twice, and I had to kind of go back and reassess. So I moved all my units around. I played with their abilities, and I think you find something that works for a while until it doesn't, and you hit another roadblock. And you're like, oh, I got to play around with my units again, because there's so many. Like this unit is good against this one, but it's weak against this one. It's not like a triangle, it's not. It's closer to a Pokemon type chart, I'd say, than it is like a
Yeah.
weapons triangle or something like that, right? Like Fire Emblem's kind of simplified it into rock paper scissors, whereas with Pokemon, there's 16 or 18 different types now, I think, and so you have to know all of those advantages and disadvantages. It's the same with building your units in Unicorn Overlord, and I kind of like it actually. It can be frustrating, like to not know exactly what is wrong. But if you go back to the drawing board and you tinker, it's not really about grinding. It's about kind of figuring out what works and what doesn't. So there's a lot of that kind of trial and error and just discovery, and I think that's something that people are going to really like about this one.
It's nice that you don't have to waste time though, like because you select the unit and then you can kind of hover over the enemy that you want to fight, and then it tells you in clear as day, like this is how it's going to end.
Yeah,
Like, okay,
exactly.
well, this is clearly not what I want. So, like, what else can I do here? So then you can kind of tinker with what you got going on to kind of get to the result that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice that because like if it was like, oh well, here, take your chances and see what happens, and then you'd have to like watch the whole battle play out just to realize you're about to get creamed like that.
Exactly. Yeah, and then it's just too
Man,
late
like
at that point.
that would, yeah, like how you'd just be left frustrated all the time. Like it's I like that there's no dinking around. Like it's like this is how it's gonna go. So
The
don't.
transparency is really refreshing. Like I feel like
Yeah,
you play a lot of games where you don't know how the encounter is going to go, right? Like you might think you're super strong, and maybe they've got something that you're weak against, and you didn't know about that. Like in a Fire Emblem fight, you might know the percentage of your attack, but you won't necessarily know if you're going to win that encounter. Maybe they do a crit or something like that. And there are crits and stuff like that too here, but for the most part, yeah, what you see is what you get. Where there can be uncertainty introduced is when and I don't know if you've encountered too many maps like this, but there are battles where you'll have like these little watchtowers, and if there's an archer in a watchtower and they're nearby where your two units meet, they will be able to do like kind of covering fire, right? They'll be able to spray you with arrows before the combat even starts, and then so you'll be at a disadvantage because maybe your units took damage and they're going to get killed. One of them will get killed off, and then they won't be able to fight for the rest of the combat exchange.
yeah,
But the same thing works on your side too. If you bring two units together and your second unit has an archer or a mage, they can do the same kind of like supporting fire as well. And you can choose to use the supporting fire or not, because it does use stamina if you're not in a watchtower. So there's another thing there about pairing units together, not just individual characters in a unit, but bringing two units together that might have complementary things, right? Like maybe one is they don't have ranged abilities, but they're really strong fighters, like on the ground. You put them in front, and then you've got your archers or your mages behind. You might be able to do healing support, archery support, or like a fire spell from support. And so that again, that could be a really good combination that maybe you haven't tried yet, and you find out, oh, that really works well on this map. I want to keep these two units together as we march towards where the leader is camped out. There's a couple of the things in combat that I have to bring up because they're kind of crazy. One is you find these little campfires eventually, maybe after 7 or 8 maps, you'll find these campfires on the ground, and they restore your stamina points so your units can keep moving, and they heal all the units within a pretty wide radius. So you kind of bring all your units close to the little campfire, then click on it, do the campfire action, and everyone gets healed and kind of rested up. So that's something you have to take advantage of. There's these shrines you can find in the combat maps that allow you to like summon like a windstorm that like pushes units away. There's a couple other things that summon other abilities like that too, but there's a surprising amount of variety in the maps. It's not like, oh, the terrain is a little bit different or the layout's a little bit different. There are maps that take 2 minutes to finish. There are maps that take 30 to 40 minutes to finish. Like just a lot. Every time you go into an encounter, you don't necessarily know what it's going to look like or what it's going to be. And I love that kind of discovery of it. That I'm probably gonna meet a new unit type or a new character. That's going to be a little kind of cutscene before the battle starts. I might have to rescue that person. I might have to protect someone. I might find that there's kind of a bunch of side garrisons that I can take out, and maybe I'll get more experience that way. Or maybe I just take a straight shot to where the enemy leader is. I have that option as well. So I'm just in love with the combat element of this game. The characters are fun to me. It's fun to kind of see your ranks continuously growing. And yeah, I think the main story is like serviceable, and I imagine it's going to get a little bit more involved, kind of in the second half, the final third of the game, when we finally built our army. There have been some interesting story beats that haven't really been explored yet. I think it really is still, at least for me, halfway through, still on that liberating the other kingdoms, making friends, seeing Elaine's army swell, getting us ready for the big bad later on.
It was funny. I was just looking up, like, it's worth talking about Vanillaware in general, just
Yeah,
because their history is kind of interesting in the sense that, like, they haven't made a whole lot of games really.
no, they haven't.
like the first games were, like, the first game was in 2006. It was actually published by Square Enix for Windows. Fantasy Earth: The Ring of Dominion.
That's not even that long ago. Like, it really
No,
isn't that long. Yeah.
2000, no. But then after that was like Grim Grimoire and Odin Sphere in
Yep.
2007. And I think that's probably the first game people are more aware of them. And then there was like a couple Japanese games, it looks like, that
Mhm.
were exclusive to Japan. But the next one wasn't really until 2013. It would be Dragon's
Dragon's
Crown, which
Crown.
was
Yeah.
a PlayStation 3 game. And then it was 6 years until 13 Sentinels came out.
Yeah.
And I can't even. It boggles my mind that 13 Sentinels was 5 years ago. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it feels like it was only a couple years ago.
Well,
I know
I
I
guess there
didn't
was
play it when it first came out, so that's probably why it's thrown it off a bit. But
it got ported to a couple different places, right? So I guess there was that re-release that happened as well. So everyone started
yeah,
talking about it again, even though we'd played it years, a while before that, I think.
yeah,
Or maybe we waited to the re-release, and when all that buzz was happening, like, oh, we finally have to play this, like it is kind of a nice thing for them. I think the same thing happened with Dragon's Crown, right? That there was a Dragon's Crown on PS3, and then they did a Dragon's Crown Pro, probably on PS4 and maybe on
yeah.
Xbox or something like that. They might have even had some games on Vita. Am I crazy to think that a bunch of their games came to
Well,
Vita?
they were they were supposed to be games on Vita. Like, 13 Sentinels was supposed to be on Vita, and they
Right.
ended up canceling it so that they could focus on the PS4.
That's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's funny because the games are so different from each other. Like, Dragon's Crown was and Odin Sphere were kind of 2D action RPGs.
Mhm.
And then I guess like the director was like, he was tired of it, so he's like, no, we're doing 13 Sentinels. And I guess they weren't even really supposed to do it.
Yeah.
He just started working on it and then showed it to ATLUS and like, this is what we're making. And then they're like, okay, I guess. And so it was like a huge switch from an action RPG. But now they, like, so they do this weird the game that it's kind of put them on the map to a certain degree. I think a lot of the love for Vanillaware, like, I think is a lot of it has been based on the success of 13 Sentinels.
For sure. I mean, well, look what's happening with Unicorn, right? This is the first time, I believe, where all of their releases simultaneous worldwide,
Yeah,
and look at all the platforms it's coming to, right? Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox Series consoles. Like, that's a big step for them, right? Like, for it to be worldwide and all these platforms all at the same time is kind of crazy. Like
And I
to
feel
think
like
where
the
they were
buzz is
before.
because it's Vanillaware too. Like it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
with 13 Sentinels, it wasn't so much like, oh, this is a Vanillaware game. It was like, no, this is just a really good weird game.
Hmm.
And now I think they've just built on that. So it's funny that they're like, forget 13 Sentinels now. Like we're just moving on to a completely different system altogether. Like,
Well, I'll give you one thing, one comparison between those two games, right? You remember like the mech combat segments where you had to like move the mechs across the cityscape and use their abilities. There's a
yeah,
little bit of that DNA in Unicorn, right?
yeah,
Like you can see it's not like, oh, they're the same game or something like that, but there's a little bit of like, oh, they're kind of trying this out here, this little small game mode, which is a very minor part relatively, at least for I think for most people's enjoyment of 13 Sentinels. You didn't care that much about those mech fights, but you can see, okay, well, they've tried a little bit of it there, and now they've made a whole game of that, right? And it's kind of funny. We see that from time to time where a developer does like a little side mode, and then later on they make a full game that's like that, right? You can
yeah.
kind of see the wheels turning that kind of creative process a little bit of experimenting with something, and then blowing it up after they see what worked and what didn't. And if the result of adding that part to 13 Sentinels and having everyone play it and giving feedback on it, and now we've got this, it's cool. And I think we're like we said when we were talking about Infinite Wealth, like Studio RGG, kind of like seeing their rise, seeing the extent of their powers with Infinite Wealth, and all the changes they made there. I wonder if this is that same kind of inflection point for Vanillaware. Like more people know them. They've got this really signature art style that I think a lot of people dig. And now, okay, let's make a huge. This is a long game, right? 13 Sentinels was long, but it didn't. It was because it's a lot of it is visual novel ish. It's a different kind of length, right?
Yeah.
Unicorn Overlord is longer because like you have to successfully complete all these combat encounters, right? Like, the world is fairly large. There's lots of stuff to do, lots of secrets hiding kind of around every corner, nook and cranny. You have to be thorough if you want to find everything. It's a different kind of length here. But yeah, I wonder if we're seeing the same kind of like, hey, we're confident. Look at the review scores, look at the sales of 13 Sentinels. Now we can afford to do something like this and putting it on every platform. I think they're pretty confident in it.
Yeah, well, and it'll be interesting to see, like, the again with all the buzz. And the only thing is, like, I'm sure, like, when they chose the release date, they likely didn't know
Yeah, yeah.
Rebirth. But I just like the proximity to Rebirth is like,
When did Rebirth get dated? Because
I don't know.
I think Unicorn was dated in September when it got announced, and
I
I don't
feel like
know.
I don't know when. I feel like Rebirth was known before
It might
that,
have
but
been known before that. Yeah,
I don't know, or around the same time maybe.
yeah. I
But
wonder if they just missed it.
I know that they're different games, but at the same time, it's like I feel like there's going to be a huge overlap in the consumer base of, like, if you're buying Rebirth, you're
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
the same type of person that would buy Unicorn.
So September 2023, the state of play, February 2nd, I believe. Sorry, not February 2nd. So September state of play, whenever that was. So it could have been really close, actually. Is it possible in that state of play we saw Unicorn, or was Unicorn first seen in a direct? I can't remember.
Oh
I
man,
want to
well, it's
I want
funny.
to
It might have
figure
even
this
have
out.
been maybe Rebirth was September. I feel like they were very close
I
to
think it
being
was
announced at
really
the same
close.
time. So
Yeah,
maybe Rebirth was in the September state of play, and then Unicorn was in the Nintendo Direct in
it could have been
September.
something like that, and they might have been
Yeah,
honestly they might have been a day apart. Who knows, right?
yeah.
So September 14th was the state of play, and Nintendo Direct in September.
They're usually pretty close, so it would be like within a week or
What
something.
date did I say for the? I think
I think you said the 18th or
they were
something
the
like that.
same date, the
Oh
14th.
yeah,
They were both on the 14th. Isn't that crazy? So it's
yeah.
entirely possible they didn't know what Final Fantasy Day was going to be, and they made the announcement. And both games announcing their solid release dates on the same date in September. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Maybe they were praying the rebirth would get delayed.
Hey, that's a safe bet. Honestly, that's a safe
Yeah.
bet for a Final Fantasy game getting delayed. I wouldn't put that past them. But you know, maybe they knew, or after they found out, they're still like, hey, we're a pretty different game. Like, and we're confident in the
Yeah.
game. We know what we have here, so we're not going to move it. There's something to be said for being like, you know, no, we're not going to move it. We feel like we've got a good product here, and so we believe in it. We're going to stand behind it. So I respect that, but it is just, yeah, I mean, we've been saying this and we're going to continue to say it, that it is a crazy time for RPG fans.
Yeah.
And so yeah, they're all a little bit different, but they all are very long. Like they're all super
Well,
long games.
and RPGs from Japan too. Like
Yes,
sometimes you'll
yes.
get like where you'll get like a Starfield at the same time as like a Final Fantasy or something like that,
Sure,
and then
sure.
you at that point you could say like, well, it's not really the same base of people per se, because
No,
you
no.
got your Western fans and your Eastern fans or whatever. But no, these are all like Japanese developed.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Atlus had, having Unicorn. Well, they had Reload only a few weeks ago come out, and then
Yeah.
you got Unicorn coming out now, and then Square Enix with Final Fantasy, and then you said
The Venn diagram
Sega with
of people who want to play these games is almost a circle, right?
oh
Like it
yeah,
probably is. I mean, I think this game is going to be a little bit more niche. You just look at it, and I think even the Vanillaware art style, as appealing as we might find it, I think is still kind of a little bit more niche, right? It's not like
yeah.
cutting
It
edge 3D technology
No,
kind of thing. You know, it's
and it's pretty Japanese. Like if people are kind of turned off by that style of animation, then this might not be their thing.
yeah,
Like I
it
was
has a lot
even
of that
laughing
anime
about,
look to it. Yeah.
yeah, like I was laughing to you about like, why is Scarlet standing so weird? She
Oh, I
has like
know,
this
I know.
one leg that's kind of your
Just wait.
stereotypical like,
There's
and
so
I'm
many
like,
characters that have really
this is
funny
not
looks.
even
Yeah.
the beginning. Like this is a Vanillaware, so
It's gonna
it's
get
gonna
worse.
get
It's gonna get worse.
risque.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's definitely characters wearing a lot less than she is. The witches are ridiculous. They kind of do this, like they kind of sway back and forth. It's hilarious.
Mm.
There's a lot of like kind of funny, quirky like character designs, kind of moments, but also just like the moves they do in combat, or their combat stance, I guess, can be fun to watch too.
Mm. Well, I remember even seeing people on Twitter being like, I can't play Aegis because they're like naked in the robots and stuff.
Oh gosh, yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but and you'd think, okay, something like that probably did dissuade a group of people that would have played that game. But again, I think it's sold quite well, right? It sold well, it reviewed
Yeah, I
well.
think I saw it was over 1 million anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
across multiple platforms, it's got to be higher than that now. I'd say too, maybe 2 or 3 million, but which is
Yeah.
again for a studio that doesn't release games all that often, I think it's still pretty good for them.
Yeah. Well, even for Atlas, like I
Yeah.
know they're one of the bigger RPGs makers or whatever, but at the same time, like they're not moving units like
Mhm.
Nintendo or Sony or nothing. Like
Well, we
it's
saw Reload was like the highest or fastest selling Persona game or fastest selling Atlas game, right?
yeah.
The Reload had such a kind of a pop at launch, and we'll see what kind of tail it has.
Well,
Maybe a little
even
bit
Persona
trickier.
5,
Yeah.
as huge of a cultural thing it was still only moving like a few million. I think it was like 5 million, and they thought that was like, as big as the rest of the
Hmm, hmm.
franchise ever
Yeah,
like
it's huge.
combined or
It's huge
something.
for
And I'm
them.
just
It's
like,
huge for them. Yeah.
5 million's not, not a big number when compared to like Nintendo or something, but
Hmm.
yeah, for them it's massive.
Yeah, it's hard, right? Like obviously Nintendo, like a Nintendo or a Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, I mean, they might be selling close to like what Sony first parties are selling at Atlas. I'm saying, and that's good. It's really
Yeah.
good actually for them to do that. If you can sell close to the number that any first party studio is doing, I think you should be proud and happy of that success.
Mhm.
So it'll remain to be seen how well this game sells. I think that it is one that could have a longer tail as people, they finish their Final Fantasies, their Personas, their Infinite Wealths, and they want something else for like the middle of the year, end of the year. This could be one that people go to, like, oh, I remember this game looked really cool. Maybe it's on sale or something like that, and they end up taking a chance in it. And again, it's got that demo there, so more people are going to play the demo. There's going to be, word of mouth, I think, is going to push this game quite a bit
Yeah.
as well. I'll be surprised if their view scores aren't quite positive for this one. Obviously, I'm not. I'm writing a review in progress. I'm posting that. There'll be a video, but I'm not going to give this a score until I finish it. It's too big, and there's too much like main story stuff yet to happen. I have to see like how that lands. With the new characters I get, like you mentioned, like there's these beast or animal characters. I haven't even seen them yet, so like I have to see
You
these
got a
different
ways to go.
races too. Like you mentioned, like the angels and the elves. I've met those two.
Yeah.
I've got some of them in my party now, but I haven't. Yeah, I haven't met some of the other classes or races, I guess, in this world. So I'm thrilled to see the end. It's been nice to kind of really sink my teeth into this one. I wasn't. I mean, I think we before the start of the year, I think this is one we had kind of penciled in, like, oh, we're interested in it. We want to see how it goes, and then it got a demo, and the launch is imminent here. But then we also knew we were going to be in the thick of it with Final Fantasy and other games too. So
Hmm.
something always has to give. But yeah, I hope that anyone listening to this it will take at least take a chance on this game, try the demo. Again, I think you can get. I saw people on social media getting like 4, 5, or 6 hours even out of the demo, which is crazy. Like that should tell you all you know about whether you're going to enjoy this game. But just know that when you get past that point, I think the game gets even better. Like I have found like from hour like 8, 9, 10 onward, it's been really captivating, and I'm really enjoying what's happening. And again, the tinkering, the trial and error, and seeing that pay off, seeing like your experiments be like go from like I'm getting slaughtered in a battle and I'm the same level as the enemy. Like it's clearly just my layout, the characters I've put together aren't working in this scenario anymore. And maybe they did work before, but now I have to kind of juggle things around to the different enemies that I'm fighting. Because yes, your army is growing and you're encountering different character types and classes to join your team, but you're also fighting different ones too that you haven't fought before. So the way that the challenge kind of ramps up, not in terms of like levels and that kind of progression, but in terms of variety of enemies you're fighting is quite interesting actually. Like again, if you've only played a Fire Emblem game, you haven't really seen something like this before where you're constantly encountering new enemies. Like I think there's again the weapon triangle kind of not limits, but it does restrict to some extent what you're going to encounter in a Fire Emblem game. And I ended up as good as Engage was, and I think the combat is fun there. I was started to fall off of it just because like it kind of became repetitive, and I was just kind of going through the motions with my team, and a lot of it is like the levels and maybe the relationship between characters. There's a lot more underneath the hood that you have to adjust and compensate for or consider, I guess. And so I'm really excited to see what people are saying about this game at launch, and I hope that people will come out of the Final Fantasy VII hibernation and end
Yeah.
up giving this one a chance.
Well, we can finish with so I have the very complicated setup of the demo here.
Okay, good.
So the way it works is that there's a 5 hour limit to the
There's
demo,
a 5 hour. Okay, yeah.
but it doesn't start until after the tutorial missions.
Oh, that's okay. That's how people get to 6 then.
Yeah, so they said that the demo, like you could get up to 7 hours in the demo
Oh, that's
because
so
what
funny.
happens is yeah, so there's a 5 hour time limit, or you reach the end of chapter 4.
Chapter
So the
4.
demo ends once the players complete chapter 4, which is the
Okay.
priestess abducted.
Okay.
Which is, I think that must have been where I was,
That's
because I
close to where you are then, yeah.
yeah.
But I guess you could just ignore that story mission and do some side stuff, and then come back to that later. I guess that I think that's how
Yeah,
people get
because
5,
it
right?
would have let me just do like some random battles and stuff,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
set up and all that. So I could have put some more time in like tinkering with the mechanics and that sort of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But
Good.
and yes, the progress does carry over to the main game,
Yeah.
assuming that
It does. I
the
found that too.
demo you play the demo on the version that you end up buying at the
That's
end of the
right.
day.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'll add just as an aside that the Switch performance I think is perfectly fine. Like I have encountered no issues. The loading times are almost non-existent. So I think
I
if
like that
you
description. Fine,
yeah,
perfectly fine.
no, well, I don't know. Like, I guess the default is it's bad, and I'm not trying to say like it's immaculate. It's just like it's fine. Like
It's better
there's no
than the
issues there.
trash heap it usually is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So no, there's no like hitches or crashes or anything like that. No bugs that I've encountered. Any slowdown or anything. I think it's fine. It's a game it's gonna run well probably on every platform. It's not super demanding. You can tell just
As I
from
say,
what it is. Like
you don't
there's
have
not
to
a lot
worry about
happening.
FPS really, because most of the
No,
time they're
no.
just standing. It's
It's
like
a lot of static.
static, yeah,
static
images
images and
or
stuff.
reading or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, but yeah, if you enjoyed 13 Sentinels, I think you're going to get not a similar gameplay experience, but I think that the sensibilities, the style, I think the writing kind of shines through. The voice acting is very good. I've enjoyed that so far as well. So
yeah,
yeah, I've got a two thumbs up so far. I will eventually kind of come back and update the review with a score when I finally get through the game. But I'm anticipating like another. This is a 35, 40 plus hour game. So buckle up, 2024. Like it's
yeah,
a year of long games, I think, and so we're eating good on Team RPG. That's for sure.
yeah. No, and I'm sure we'll have like a spoiler cast-ish type
Yeah, yeah. When more
episode
we get
about
into
it
it,
in a few weeks.
sounds good. Sounds good.
Depends how long it takes to get through Final Fantasy VII, which is
I'm seeing 80
already
hours all
like,
over the place. I'm seeing
my
80 hours.
God, like it's such a feast of a game.
Yeah, I'm excited to take. I'm going to take a little bit of a break now that I've got the review in progress out for Unicorn. I do want to take a little bit of a break and hit up Final Fantasy VII and see what all the buzz is about. Even though I know what it's about, because everybody's talking about it and
Yeah.
sharing videos and screenshots and stuff like that. It looks so good, but yeah. So we are planning to record a Final Fantasy VII episode soon as well. It just kind of got waylaid by Unicorn, and so we'll have both out this month and probably spoiler casts for both as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
We
I'm sure
were
we'll have multiple episodes for seven.
no doubt, yeah.
It's a big it's a beefy game.
We were talking about a special guest joining us for a Final Fantasy VII episode. I don't know if you want to say that now or if
Yeah,
we
well, yeah, I was talking to Aiden. He's been on a couple times. Our Final Fantasy expert.
our Final Fantasy correspondent.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right. So he'll likely be on one of the episodes, probably one of the like a spoilery
Anyone a
type
spoiler
one
one? Yeah,
later on. I
that'd
would
be good.
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be
Yep.
good. Cool. So look forward to that, everybody. So yeah, just happy to share some thoughts, extended thoughts on Unicorn Overlord above and beyond what the demo included that David played. So if you've only played the demo, I think it does get better and better and better. I think there's just an incredible depth here. I hope more people will check it out. Hope there's a good buzz with this game as well. But yeah, that'll do us for this week. Thanks everybody for listening. We are on Spotify, whatever your podcast app of choice. We are going to be there. If you can leave us a review, a rating, that would be fantastic. Helps with visibility. We always appreciate that. Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody out there listening. Hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you again soon on the Thirsty Mage. Bye for now.
Bye.